Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another short little unboxing video to share with you guys. That was a quality slap. Not lined up, not squared, but pretty good. The percussion of that slap in here was pretty pronounced. Anyways, what we have here, got a little bit of allergies I'm dealing with a little bit of allergies right now, so bear with me. I'm going to power through it. I'm going to put on my big boy pants, and I'm going to brave through it. We have a knife from Tempest Knives, Casey Spyron. You guys probably familiar with Casey. I appreciate Casey getting this to me. This actually came from Neves Knives. You can probably check it out on his channel as well. But I think these are going to be his... when he messaged me, he said these should be available mid-September. So please, for the love of God, if you go to the website, first of all, check the date that it is now, right? If you go to the website and it says sold out, it probably means that they are not there right now, but will be there in the middle of September. I'm sorry for the sarcasm. The comments I get sometimes, I'm like, oh! Okay, so... let's go ahead and find out what's in here. I will link these in the description so you guys can check them out. What we have is the Microjet in blue tie. I believe this is a prototype. I honestly didn't realize. Okay, so this is a smaller version of your... oh, I love this. I love the little texturing in there. That's really, really nice. I love that. So this is a smaller version of a past design, and I forget the name of it, but a more EDC. Actually, so... let me tell you right now, I said, that's too shallow. I'm not going to be able to get in there because this is just like a ledge. It's not cut out enough. I thought immediately, I got ahead of myself. I was like, I already got a critique for you. Nope, I was wrong. It's actually super easy to get in there, and I'll tell you why. Just trying to dance around how I'm going to word this so you guys don't poke fun of me in the comments. It's because this actuation hole, deployment hole, does not end abruptly right here where it's open. It continues, material continues, sorry, the camera's not wanting to focus. The material continues out to here. So, depending on the fatness and thickness of your fingers, fingers with an F, depending on how broad fingered you are, the way that you deploy this should be pretty easy. I mean, if you've got smaller fingers, then yeah, no problem. I can actually still be up here. I was double wrong. This actually isn't a problem at all. Whenever I see that, that's the first thing I want to do. If you guys are like me, then you probably want to deploy it that way. But I noticed even down here, I'm still able to. And the reason it's so important is because depending on the strength of that finger, a lot of people say, like, I've tried doing the reverse lick a million times, I just can't do it. And it's definitely kind of a muscle. It's not necessarily strength. You just kind of figure out leverage. But the lower you get on the blade, the easier it is to overcome the detent. So having this is definitely something that I think is important, having this extension of that. But anyways, the scales are contoured slightly. Are they? Let's take a look. Let's take a closer look. Subtle contouring. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's really nice. Even when it's subtle, it's something that I notice, and even if you don't care, it's something you have to take note of because the cost of doing that, or the machines that do that, are substantially more expensive, right? So really cool, nicely contoured, is going to assist slightly in terms of hand comfort, which, by the way, is really, really good. And look at that. We have a filler tab, which I'm happy to see because that means lefties get to enjoy this the same way as right-handed people. What do we have for the blade steel? So the blade steel in this guy is... well, wait a second. This is a prototype. Hold on. I don't think... actually, I don't know. I feel like I looked these up... well, I feel like I definitely looked these up on the site just to see what they looked like. But I didn't look at the blade steel. Probably not D2. But I'll have this linked in the description so you can just go look, right? I did note that the price seemed really good, but I assumed that it would be like 154 or S35 or something like that, right? But I distinctly remember his email saying prototype. And when you are prototyping something, it's very common to just use kind of whatever for the blade steel. But I do like the finish on it. Let's try the flipper tab. Really, really good. That low profile flipper tab actually works really well. I think, boy, the detent's pretty good. I'd say it's about medium. But if this were an elongated flipper tab, I don't know that it would quite be, like, this is a dedicated light switch. That's what he wants you to do. He wants you to light switch it. And doing that is maximum satisfaction. But anyways, I started to talk about the filler tab there. And the reason that's good is because left-handed people can enjoy it. Now, some people don't like to look at a filler tab. Personally, I don't really care. And given that the entire knife has a blue and silver theme, it kind of just goes with it. I mean, to me, it's no more of an eyesore, which is how it's commonly described, as the pivot, which is also the silver contrasting the blue. So I don't really care. It has a nested steel liner lock, which is also very cool. Love that. Yeah, I mean, overall, I think this actually works better in this size than the other one. Here's another thing that's great, just first impressions. The extended jimping. I talk about this all the time. There's two things with jimping that just, what was that old, mildly infuriating, right? I remember when that was like a trend on social media. That's the best way to describe how so many companies nowadays cannot figure out jimping. In some cases, the jimping aesthetically can ruin the design. If the design is very centric around one particular element, then sometimes functional plain jimping can kind of cause it to choke a little bit. However, this is clearly designed as a tool. I mean, it's a cool looking tool, but it's definitely designed to be carried and used, especially at that price point, right? So having jimping that, doesn't just end right here, that drives me nuts. Where the jimping just ends at the frame. Why? Just keep going. It's not hurting anything, right? Especially on a tool design, but it just feels a lot more comfortable if you find yourself in a situation where you're going to use a knife like this, which is admittedly for me very, very rare. But in that situation, I do like that I can get my thumb up here. And the other thing that bothers me is when the jimping is not functional. Why even put it there if it's not functional? It sounds like a silly complaint, but guys, I can't tell you, as a knife reviewer, how many times I have handled a pocket knife that has essentially just, it's like decorative jimping. It's like a chair that you don't use. I found out only within the last 5 years of my life that some chairs are decorative. Now, this might seem silly to a lot of you, right? But I have always assumed that all chairs are meant to be sat in. It turns out that sometimes chairs are simply to complement the atmosphere of the room. That is insanity to me. If I can't sit in it, I'm mad that it's there. I don't want it. I want to be able to sit in it. Apparently, I went through this when we were furnishing our house. But there are certain chairs that I can't sit in, and every time I walk by them, the music from Step Brothers, when he looks at the drum set, plays in my head, and I've got a little bit of a personal, I got a personal issue with a couple of chairs in my house. But anyways, that's how I see it. Why put it there unless you can use it? If you can't use it, or if it provides zero traction, don't put it there. The first frustration I had with that was with the Les George VECP, which is a knife that I love. But the jimping, if you've handled that knife, it's pointless. It's pointless. Even on some of my really pricey Schuher Groff knives, which a lot of people would say those aren't really meant to be carried because they're so expensive. Some of them have purely functional jimping, and some of them have purely decorative jimping, even at the same price point. So it doesn't really make sense to me. But anyways, I'm ranting right now. I like this. I think it's cool. I would hope that the steel's not D2. D2 is almost there are two different versions of D2 that you see in the knife world, and they often get sort of mashed into the same world. There's D2, just Inga D2, which is actually a super underrated budget steel, but definitely a budget steel. It's just not the new popular, it's not the quarterback of the football team anymore, right? So it belongs in the budget world, but it is definitely much more spectacular than people give it credit for, especially when it's heat treated properly. But people don't like to see people don't like to see D2 venture too far past the $50 territory, even when the other elements of the knife are indicative of a higher price point. It's just not an accepted blade steel. Then there's CPM D2, which is, again, like I said, it's people are just like, oh yeah, CPM D2 and D2 is the same thing. No, it is not. CPM D2 is substantially more expensive. Now, the potential performance of CPM D2 is, and depending on who you talk to, mildly better or significantly better than regular D2. But it is powder formed in a much more expensive steel, and in my opinion, is acceptable up to a higher, definitely a higher price tier. But people still don't like to see it past that a certain point. So I would hope that the steel is not D2 is what I'm saying there. But mainly that message is directed at new people. CPM is a big deal. It's a much bigger deal. If you see that, right, in the name of a steel, which can be further confusing because steels like S35EN are always CPM, and some companies choose to put CPM before it, and some companies don't. Whereas D2 has two different versions, right? 154 CM, for example, is also another example of two very different, one is CPM 154, and then 154 CM is the ingot version, and they both perform differently, right? Even if it's marginal. But yeah, D2 and CPM D2, very, very different in terms of what it costs to create them, and can be potentially dramatically different in terms of performance, heat treat, geometry, all that. Anyways, lots of rambling here. I'll link this down in the description. I'm going to carry this for a bit. I'll give you guys a full comprehensive review in a couple of weeks, but expect to see these in mid-September, I believe. Thanks again to Tempest Knives for sending this in, or Casey Spiron. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and on TikTok at _metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.